Welcome to Bad at Goodbyes. Each week on our show, we spotlight species from the IUCN Critically Endangered Red List. These are plants and animals with decreasing populations, nearing the edges of extinction. We'll share species research, information, and conservation proposals, and then we'll spend a chunk of the show opening a space for contemplation and awe. We'll perform a kind of meditative soundscape of gentleness and quietude and reflection, and perhaps grieving. There is a very low likelihood that any of these species will survive the 21st century, and so perhaps we might acknowledge their passage with a moment of our attention, a recognition of our kinship, and with a commitment to personal and systemic change. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we consider the Pariette cactus. The Pariette cactus is a critically endangered cactus native to Western North America, specifically Utah in the United States. The Pariette cactus is very small, squat, barrel-shaped, typically reaching heights of 1 to 4 inches with a diameter of 1 to 3 inches. So this is like, roughly the size of like a human child's fist. Its body is predominantly green with a dense covering of whitish spines. The main body of the cactus is called the stem. It's thick and fleshy and is a reservoir for storing water. Its green color results from the presence of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll's role in photosynthesis is to absorb light energy, primarily the reds and blues of the spectrum, and reflecting back green, which is why plants appear green. This absorbed light energy drives a series of chemical reactions, converting water and carbon dioxide into glucose, which is like a food sugar, and oxygen. The surface of the stem of the Pariette cactus is covered in a waxy protective layer called the cuticle. It's composed primarily of cutin, a mixture of waxes and fatty acids, which acts as a barrier, reducing water loss through transpiration. The cutin seals the stem, preventing the escape of water vapor through the stem's tiny pores called stomata, which are used for carbon dioxide intake. Additionally, the cuticle has some reflective properties, helping to deflect intense sunlight, reducing the temperature of the stem and further minimizing water loss. It also serves as a physical barrier against pathogens and insects. The stem of the Pariette cactus is further divided into vertical ribs, which provide structural support and increase the plant's surface area for photosynthesis. The ribs also allow the cactus to expand and contract as it absorbs water. Small, woolly, raised structures called areoles are located along the ribs. These are, in fact, the cactus's branches. It's a specialized growing point for the spines and flowers. And then the spines then are specialized leaves of the cactus, adapted to protect the cactus from herbivores and also play a role in reducing water loss by creating a microclimate around the stem that traps moisture from fog and provides an additional surface to collect dew or light rain. The dense cover of spines also provides some shade for the stem, reducing its exposure to intense sunlight and helping to prevent overheating. Spines are arranged in clusters, radiating outward from the areoles. Each cluster contains roughly 1 to 3 central spines that project outward from the center of the areole. These measure less than 1/4 inch in length, and they're hooked, like a fish hook, say, so they can snag in skin and fur. This is an additional defense. Those central spines are encircled by 5 to 13 1/4 to 1/2 inch radial spines, which grow from the outside edge of the areole and lie flat against the body of the cactus. In the springtime, roughly in April and May, some areoles at the top of the Pariette cactus produce flowers. These flowers are purplish pink and bell-shaped, roughly 1/2 inch tall and 1 inch wide. These flowers are the size of your thumbnail, and they're also super pretty. I encourage you to look up pics of the Pariette cactus. The flowers contain both the male reproductive organs, so this is the pollen-bearing stamen, and the female reproductive organs, this is the pistil, which contains the ovary. Pollinators, like the southern bronze furrow bee, and perhaps ants and beetles, are attracted to the flower's bright colors, seeking the sweet nectar within. And so as they move from flower to flower, collecting nectar, they transfer pollen grains from the stamens of one flower to the stigma. This is like the top receptive part of the pistil, to the stigma of another. So if a pollen grain is compatible with the pistil it lands on, it grows a pollen tube down the pistil to reach the flower's ovary. Within the ovary, the pollen fertilizes the ovules, these are the eggs, which leads to the formation of seeds. The fertilized ovary then develops into a fruit, which in the Pariette cactus are dry, less than 1/2 inch in diameter, and shaped like short cylinders. Fruit are green, tan, sometimes a bit pinkish. And they have small, thin, dry scales on them with papery edges. And then when fruits are ripe, they split open to release the seeds. Seeds are dispersed by wind, rainfall, and gravity, so just like falling near the parent plant. In the wild, Pariette cactus are often found in clusters, I guess like a kind of family with parent and offspring nearby. So after dispersal, if the seeds land in suitable soil with sufficient moisture, they will germinate, growing a shallow and widespread root system, enabling the cactus to more easily absorb water from the surface. And then once a seedling has established itself, it grows very slowly, taking anywhere from 5 to 10 years to reach reproductive maturity and produce its first flowers. Though exact data on its lifespan is limited, it's estimated that the Pariette cactus lives for multiple decades, potentially reaching 50 years old or greater. The Pariette cactus is native to the Pariette Draw, a dry clay badlands ravine in Chesney County, Utah, on lands of the Bureau of Land Management and the Uinta and Yoré Reservation, near the Green River and roughly 100 miles from Salt Lake City. This habitat falls within the broader Colorado Plateau bioregion. This is a high elevation desert characterized by red rock canyons, mesas, clay hills, salt and sagebrush flats, all in like a very arid landscape. The Pariette Draw itself, which is the only place this species is found, is a stark gully shaped by ancient erosion. A badlands carved into clay-rich soil with networks of valleys and ravines. And the Pariette cactus is found only in a few square miles of the Pariette Draw, growing at elevations of roughly 1 mile above sea level. This is a high desert ecosystem with significant temperature fluctuations. So summers are scorching, with daytime highs cresting above 100 degrees. Then the winters are cool with temperatures that can plummet into the single digits. Annual rainfall is scarce, averaging less than 10 inches per year, with much of that precipitation in the form of brief, intense thunderstorms. The Pariette cactus shares its arid home with coyote, four-winged saltbush, honeybee, carpenter ant, burrowing owl, darkling beetle, western rattlesnake, kit fox, gopher snake, sagebrush, ricegrass, prickly pear cactus, rabbit brush, pronghorn, saltgrass, mule deer, greasewood, kangaroo rat, shade scale, desert cottontail, red-tailed hawk, pickleweed, yucca, black-tailed jackrabbit, sage thrasher, and many, many more. In the dream, a deep rumbling. In the dream, a shuddering beneath, like the ancient promise between earth and root broken, and the new heat, and the new drought, and the dust now that never seems to settle. I want but to open, to offer my legacies, my breath and sweetness. But this is a new world of unknowable danger, of noise and theft and tremblings. And sometimes I think it best to hold my gifts close in the dream. The Pariette cactus faces a range of threats, the most significant being oil and gas development. Its entire habitat range falls within current or proposed oil exploitation sites, with over 1,800 wellheads already nearby. The construction of these wells and, related infrastructure like roads and buildings and pipelines leads to habitat loss, habitat fragmentation, and increased erosion. And so the dust generated from these activities negatively impacts the cactus's growth and mortality. Illegal collection is also a threat, as the cactus is sought after by collectors. So the expansion of oil exploitation infrastructure like roads has inadvertently made the cactus more accessible to poachers. Human-introduced domesticated livestock grazing is an additional, albeit indirect, concern. So the livestock do not graze on the cactus itself, but scientists have observed trampled, mature, and seedling cacti. And livestock overgrazing also leads to reduced vitality throughout the ecosystem, so that potentially affects the Pariette cactus pollinators, like the southern bronze furrow bee. Human-induced climate change, with its potential for prolonged droughts and altered precipitation patterns, is likely to have a long-term impact on the cactus. Scientists have observed that in extended drought conditions, to conserve water and energy, the Pariette cactus will only open their flowers for 2 to 3 days during the April bloom, which severely limits the opportunity for pollination. The Pariette cactus is legally protected, and much of its habitat falls under the purview of the Bureau of Land Management and under the tribal governance of the Uinta and Yoro Reservation. And since the early 2010s, those bodies, along with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, have implemented programs to abate the impacts of development activity, limit habitat loss, and protect surrounding pollinator habitats. And yet in the past decade, the Bureau of Land Management has also granted at least two new leases for oil and gas exploration in the cactus's habitat. Pariette cactus has been considered critically endangered on the IUCN Red List since 2013, and their population is currently in decline. Our most recent counts estimate that less than 30,000 Pariette cactus remain in the wild. Information for today's show about the Pariette cactus was compiled from Western North American Naturalist, Volume 70, Issue 3, from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, from the Center for Plant Conservation, from ELISO, a journal of systematic and floristic botany, Volume 30, Issue 2, and from the Utah Ecological Services Field Office, and from Wikipedia and the IUCN. So in a moment, I would like to perform some music, ideally opening a space to be in contemplation of the animal and plant lives with whom we share our earth. I want to state specifically that this music is not for the Pariette cactus. I don't want to treat the cactus like an unconsenting muse. Instead, I want this music to be about my humanity, my human awe, and how that awe can manifest in community with the other life with whom we share our planet, particularly as some of that life nears extinction. And so I will create and pause in this space of sound and reflection, and I warmly invite you to join me. I honor the life force of the Pariette Cactus. I will keep its human name in my record. I am profoundly grateful to have shared time on our planet with this little being. I lament the ways in which I and my species have harmed and diminished this species. And so, in the name of the Pariette Cactus, I pledge to reduce my consumption and my carbon footprint and curb my wastefulness. I pledge to acknowledge and attempt to address the costs of my actions and my inactions. I pledge to resist the harm of any plant, animal, or their habitat by individuals, corporations, and governments. I pledge my song to the witness and memory of all life, to a broad celebration of biodiversity, and to the total liberation of all beings. This has been Pariette Goodbyes. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let us take care of each other and all of our kin. Goodbye.